when Hanli, a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator, had just killed the late-nascent soul cultivators from the lesser righteous palace. A master and his group of high-level followers. He was just about to teleport out of the main hall. But inside the hall, he ran into several low-level cultivators from the lesser righteous palace who had teleported in seeking refuge. And they actually began to question him, the very person who had just killed several of their lesser righteous palace elders. "Excuse me, senior. Are you by chance with our palace's elders? Because demon beasts have suddenly invaded the main hall of the ethereal spirit palace." This junior was ordered to seek reinforcements from Great Elder Han Li. The woman didn't seem to have any intention of hiding this, asking directly and in a clear voice. At the same time, she couldn't help but glance toward the hall's entrance a few times. Heh, they haven't arrived yet, and I'm afraid they are too preoccupied to get away right now. Han Li chuckled, his expression perfectly calm as he replied. This junior has also heard some news. It seems that you, senior, and the elders of the palace are in the middle of something extremely important. However, the demon beasts invading this time are no small matter. If the Great Elder and the others don't show up soon, our lesser righteous palace may truly face annihilation. Upon hearing this, the woman grew anxious. Oh, are the invading demon beasts that powerful? Your palace? Isn't your palace master also a late-stage great cultivator? Is it possible even she can't handle them? Han Li asked, his eyes flashing. This junior was sent by the palace master herself to ask for aid. When I was leaving, the palace master was already tied down by a powerful demon beast. She had no way to deal with anything else. The woman said with a bitter smile. Fellow Taoist Han Li and his group have entered the profound melody cave. If you think you have a way to call them out, then you should go on ahead. I'll go over and take a look first. See exactly what kind of demon beasts have come. That it seems even your palace master can't fend them off. Han Li said nonchalantly. With a weightless feeling, he stepped into the teleportation array. Senior, please be extremely careful. There are many invading demon beasts on the other side. I'm afraid the area around the teleporter isn't very safe either. The woman was startled, but she didn't dare to stop him. She could only offer a sensible warning. Han Li nodded. With a flick of his hand, an azure spell seal struck the array. Instantly a white light flashed. The teleportation was about to begin. And just at that moment, a fluorescent glow flashed behind Han Li, and an azure figure suddenly appeared. Then, in an instant, the two of them teleported away together. Who is that? Seeing this, the woman cried out unintentionally. That demon beast from earlier. It seems like that person was the one who killed it. One of the female disciples gestured and said, speaking with some uncertainty, I heard that several seniors from outside the palace have come this time. It was probably one of the other seniors. You three, stay here. If any enemies teleport over, hold them off for now. I'm going to the Xianyu cave to see if I can call out the Great Elder and the others. Although the woman was still a bit surprised and suspicious about Han Li appearing here alone, she quickly remembered her important duty. She instructed the other three women. As you command. The three female disciples naturally bowed in agreement. Then, the woman turned into a streak of white light and shot towards the Xianyu cave. Meanwhile, Han Li and the humanoid puppet had just emerged from the teleportation array. He had not yet recovered from the disorientation of the teleport when the puppet behind him suddenly flickered, vanishing from its spot. Two screams rang out, one after the other. Finally, there was a loud thud, the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. With tears in their eyes, they looked toward the sound. And what they saw was the corpse of a demonic beast lying in a pool of blood, and beside it were a man and a woman, two core formation stage disciples of the minor polar palace. They were staring dumbfounded at the humanoid puppet, as it pulled a shimmering fluorescent arm out from the chest of another demonic beast. This beast also collapsed to the ground dead. This place was clearly a hall, identical to the one on the other side, where the teleportation array was located. Han Li glanced briefly at the two minor polar palace disciples, then, without paying them any mind, turned and walked out. Because from outside the hall's entrance came the constant, explosive sounds of battle. It seemed there were others engaged in an exceptionally fierce fight. The man and woman had originally wanted to approach and greet him, but seeing Han Li's demeanor, as if he had no intention of speaking a single word, they hesitated for a moment and stayed where they were. And in that brief instant, Han Li, along with his humanoid puppet, had already left the hall. Sure enough, in an open area outside the hall, a dozen or so minor polar palace disciples were locked in a heated battle with demonic beasts. Magic treasures and demonic auras flew everywhere, and the sounds of explosions and roars were deafening. The fight appeared to be at a temporary stalemate. Han Li merely glanced at the scene and paid it no further attention. The demonic beasts and cultivators here were mostly around the foundation establishment or core formation stages. Naturally, he couldn't be bothered with them. Immediately, a bright light flashed around his body, and he transformed into an azure streak, enveloping the humanoid puppet along with him. He shot straight towards the entrance of the side hall. After all, the teleportation array that could lead out of the palace was supposedly located in the main hall of this ethereal spirit palace. With Han Li's speed, in just the span of a single breath, he had already flown dozens of yards. He was just about to reach the hall entrance. But just then, a strange cry suddenly came from the side. A creature, completely pitch black and covered in scales, an unknown monster, shot towards him, spewing black mist from its mouth. It had a ferocious and malevolent appearance. Seeing this, Han Li wasn't surprised and just sighed. Although this demon beast's cultivation level wasn't low, its intelligence was clearly far too low. Any other demon beast would have seen how intense Han Li's shield light was, and would have done their best to dodge it. But who would have thought this one would be foolish enough to serve itself up on a silver platter? However, Han Li couldn't be bothered to waste any more time on it. A demon beast that hadn't even reached the transformation realm. He flicked a single hand towards the beast. Instantly, 5 beams of dazzling azure light shot out in a flash. The demon beast let out a blood-curdling scream. Its protective demonic aura couldn't resist in the slightest. It was pierced right through, leaving 5 large holes in its body. Its corpse fell directly to the ground. The other demon beasts, although they had already figured out Han Li was not to be trifled with, were still shocked to see him annihilate one of their own so easily. It gave them a huge fright. They were all instantly terrified. They quickly put some distance between themselves and their opponents, deciding to watch for now to see what would happen. As for the Shaoji Palace disciples, their spirits were greatly lifted. But as for Han Li, with a flash of azure light, he had already teleported out of the side hall. He showed no intention of staying at all. This left the cultivators and demon beasts in the hall, staring at each other in dismay. But after a brief moment of hesitation, the shouts of battle rose once again. The fighting became even more intense than before. After leaving the side hall, Han Li recalled the location in his mind that he had learned from Sage Hami's nascent soul. After performing the soul search technique, he flew swiftly along the path, passing several places along the way. Demon beasts and cultivators were everywhere, locked in desperate battles. It seemed this place, the Void Spirit Hall, had been completely overrun by a horde of demon beasts. Along the way, a few foolish demon beasts had rashly tried to attack him. In the end, they were either pierced by his several arrows, or were instantly killed by the puppet behind him with a single shot. The ones that died were mostly demon beasts of the 6th or 7th level. After all, demon beasts of too low a rank, just from the spiritual pressure Han Li emitted, were too afraid to get close. The demon beasts in the early form transformation stage could tell at a glance that Han Li's cultivation was far above theirs, so naturally they were unwilling to provoke an opponent they could hardly defeat. But as Han Li was passing through a long corridor, he was suddenly ambushed by 2 form transformation demon beasts, who intercepted him at the same time. One was in a blue robe, with long ears and green eyes. The other had a full head of white hair and bright red skin. He even had 3 demonic eyes. Both of them had faces full of killing intent, and stared menacingly at Han Li. Han Li's gaze swept over the 2 nearby corpses of cultivators from the lesser extreme palace, and he couldn't help but frown. The spiritual energy fluctuations here were chaotic. Clearly, a huge battle had just ended, and the victors were undoubtedly the 2 before him. Get out of my way. I'm not a cultivator from the lesser extreme palace, and I have no intention of getting involved in your fight, Han Li said coldly. The green-eyed demon was exceptionally burly, and held 2 gleaming silver great axes in his hands. Upon hearing Han Li's words, he let out a strange laugh. Get out of our way. Do you take us for fools? All human cultivators deserve to die. Besides, this lord has only eaten one, and his nascent soul tasted pretty good. I'm looking to devour another one and savor it properly. You seem to have a slightly higher cultivation level than these 2. I bet your nascent soul tastes even better. The 3-eyed demon beast also had a malicious look on its face. Of these 2 demon beasts, one was at the level 8 realm. The other one had just broken through to level 9, a high-ranking demon beast. No wonder they were so sure they could take Han Li down. After all, his humanoid puppet remained hidden, and a mere mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, even when facing an ordinary level 8 demon beast, wouldn't consider themselves to be at a disadvantage. Seeing the 2 transformed demon beasts before him, acting all ferocious as if he were a meal on a plate, Han Li frowned. Although killing these 2 demon beasts was practically a sure thing, this kind of pointless effort that wasted spiritual energy for absolutely no benefit gave him very little interest in making a move. Without a word, he formed a hand seal. A clap of thunder echoed behind him, and a pair of silver-white wings suddenly materialized on his back. With a flash of light, his figure bizarrely vanished from the spot. He actually intended to zip right past the 2 of them, having no desire to get entangled with them at all. This move caught the 2 beasts by surprise. But that 3-eyed level 9 demon beast reacted quickly enough. It hurriedly shouted, "Where do you think you're going?" Then, with a blur of its head, it bizarrely twisted a full 180 degrees, so its face was now pointing directly backward. At the same time, the 3rd jet-black demon eye between its brows suddenly released a blinding black light. A black ray shot out in a flash. With a dull boom, It was unclear what bizarre ability that black light possessed, as it struck a spot more than 20 zhong behind Han Li, and detonated on its own. Amidst the flickering black glow, Han Li's escape technique was forcefully broken, and he staggered out of the void, reappeared. His face was filled with shock. Haha kid, running into Wu Xiong is your bad luck. My fellow Taoist Wu's heaven-shattering eye. That specializes in breaking all kinds of instant movement and teleportation techniques. Now that you've run into the two of us, even thinking about escaping is just a fantasy. The other humanoid demon beast with long ears and green eyes, seeing this, grinned widely and then let out a wild laugh. Is that so? I must be truly ignorant. I had no idea there was such that miraculous demon beast in this world. Excellent material indeed. I, Han, originally had no desire for a pointless fight, but now it seems that spending some time here won't be a waste of effort after all. I'll be the one to send you on your way. Han Li slowly stood up straight, raised a hand toward his waist, and said with a grim expression, although he had just managed to conjure a small silver shield in front of him in time, that to block the dangerous explosion, he still looked rather disheveled. After suffering this minor setback, Han Li's killing intent was finally roused. The moment he finished speaking, a fluorescent light flashed behind the green-eyed, long-eared demon beast, and a faint, nimble figure appeared in an instant. Then, a shimmering silver arm thrust straight into its lower back. But at that very moment, the third demonic eye in the center of the three-eyed beast's forehead flashed. It seemed to have sensed something. It immediately twisted its head and let out a great roar. Simultaneously, it flicked its hand, and a pale yellow ring shot out from it. It struck directly at the faint, nimble figure, which let out a cold snort. With a flick of his sleeves, 36 golden, that small sword swam out like fish amidst a humming sound, transforming into dozens of foot-long streaks of golden light, and swept toward the three-eyed demon beast. While his other hand blurred, the yellow demon-subduing staff shot out from his grasp, growing in the wind, transforming into a vertical, saw-like staff, letting out a strange whistling sound. At the same time the flying swords and the demon-subduing staff were unleashed. Han Li opened his mouth, and spat out a fist-sized ball of purple flame. The tiny fire crow perched on his shoulder also acted without a sound. With a flap of its wings, it transformed into a crimson fireball and shot out. However, these last two were light and airy, appearing to move in a leisurely manner. They were nothing compared to the flying swords and the demon-subduing staff ahead, whose speed and momentum were astonishingly fast. The moment Han Li attacked, his target was solely that three-eyed demon beast. When the beast turned its head and saw this scene, it was instantly alarmed. This demon came from the myriad demon valley, so it naturally often fought with other demon beasts in the valley, vying for supremacy and fighting ruthlessly. Whether in terms of worldly experience or combat expertise, it was far beyond what a human cultivator of the same rank could compare to. Although it had not yet personally faced Han Li's attack, just from the 30 flying swords, and the astonishing spiritual light emanating from the demon-subduing staff, it knew that these two attacks were no small matter. At that moment, the demon couldn't be bothered with the other demon beast. It slapped its waist with one hand, and suddenly, a streak of light shot out from its body. A deep yellow golden light appeared, over 10 zhong in length. In a flash, it moved to intercept the approaching dozens of golden flying swords. Instantly, a series of explosions erupted between the two. The brilliant light was blindingly bright. It actually, with its power alone, managed to block all of the golden flying swords, and for a moment, it did not seem to be at a disadvantage. This made Han Li smile faintly. But in that very instant, the giant demon-subduing staff streaked past in a flash of light. It arrived above the three-eyed demonic beast's head, and came crashing down with the force of a small mountain. The three-eyed demonic beast's expression was grim. It let out a mighty roar. The clothes on its body shattered into pieces, revealing a body that seemed to be a naked, bluish-black form cast from indestructible metal. Its arms trembled slightly, and silently transformed into a pair of giant steel pincers. On its left, a saw that could block blood. It crossed its arms and clamped down directly on the demon-subduing staff. An earth-shattering boom resounded. Black and yellow lights intertwined and flashed. This beast, relying solely on the power of its demonic body, forcefully clamped down on the falling demon-subduing staff, stopping it from descending any further. But this treasure once belonged to one of the three elders of Kunwu. It was their famous magical weapon. Although Han Li, because of his cultivation technique, could not unleash its full power, when the beast caught it, its entire body trembled. Its towering figure was suddenly forced down a notch. The beast was secretly horrified. Its true form, that was a descendant of a primordial beast rarely known to the world. A descendant. Not only was it born with the third demonic eye on its forehead, but as soon as it hatched, it had the strength to tear tigers and leopards apart. And as its cultivation deepened, this innate, monstrous strength also grew day by day. Having reached its current level, it could withstand the pressure of several thousand jin as if it were nothing. But now, taking a blow from this demon-subduing staff, its arms still went numb, and it felt it couldn't bear the force. How could this not shock the beast to its core? But just then, a blood-curdling scream came from nearby. The beast's heart sank. It quickly turned its head to look. It saw that the long-eared, green-eyed demonic beast, that at some point its massive head, that had already rolled to the ground, and next to its headless body, was a short, crystal-clear jet-black blade, hovering uncertainly at the low-hanging bough, flashing with a faint black light. But that youthful figure had vanished without a trace at some point. It turned out, thanks to the other demon's warning, plus the obstruction from that silver ring, the other level 8 demon beast had dodged the humanoid puppet's strike. But before it could even, in its shock and fury, think about launching an immediate counterattack, the marrow demon flying dagger, which had stealthily crept up beside it, unexpectedly looped around the nape of its neck, and sliced this demon's head clean off. Although this demon had some abilities, both its cultivation level and its treasures were far inferior to the humanoid puppet's. How could it possibly block a full power strike from the puppet? A flash of light appeared from the lower half of the headless demon's corpse, and a ball of green light shot out from within, attempting to flee straight toward the ground. But with a flicker of fluorescent light, that youthful figure strangely materialized from the empty space below, blocking its escape route. The demon's spirit was terrified. It immediately tried to turn and flee, but it was already too late. The youthful figure was seen slowly reaching out with one hand, and somehow, it snatched the green flame right into its grasp. Then, without any hesitation, it rubbed its hands together. Amidst a flash of fluorescent light, the demon beast's terrified spirit was turned into a wisp of green smoke. All of this, though it seemed to happen in slow motion, was incredibly fast, taking place in just a split second, and it all happened to be witnessed by that three-eyed demon beast. And at that very moment, the youthful figure turned its head and glanced over. The three-eyed demon beast's body flickered with fluorescent light, and its form, along with the marrow demon flying dagger floating nearby, vanished from sight simultaneously. The demon's expression changed dramatically. Finally, a look of panic appeared on its face. With this demon's sharp eyes, it could naturally tell at a glance that the human figure, the terror of the puppet and that black flying dagger, although it didn't know that the other was merely a puppet, it knew it was no match for Han Li's duo. Filled with regret, the urge to retreat grew strong. But at this moment, its third demonic eye blinked, flashing incessantly, trying to immediately find the whereabouts of the humanoid puppet. And just then, the fireball transformed from the purple vine fire, and the ball of fire transformed from the sky in true fire, drifted over lightly from the left and right. This level 9 demonic beast was concentrating fully on casting its spell. It merely glanced at the two fireballs. Although it found them a bit strange, it didn't pay them much mind. It casually opened its mouth and spat out two streams of yellow demonic energy, shooting them directly at the two fireballs. This momentary foolishness from the beast cost it the initiative in an instant. A flash of joy appeared on his face. Its three demonic eyes simultaneously locked onto a certain point in the empty space. The two fireballs exploded at the same time. With a loud roar, the purple flames were like a wildfire. The flames erupted, suddenly transforming into a massive pillar of fire that engulfed that wisp of demonic energy. Then it howled as it shot straight toward the three-eyed demonic beast, surging wildly forward. Before it even got close to the beast, the extremely cold aura emanating from the fire pillar caused the surrounding space to crackle loudly. Layers of unusually crystalline ice quickly appeared in the void and spread rapidly towards the beast opposite it, as if it wanted to freeze the entire surrounding space solid. As for the crimson fireball, after it also exploded, it reformed into the shape of a fire crow, but enveloped in crimson flames. Its body grew to an immense size. With just a single opening of its beak, it swallowed the demonic energy in front of it in one gulp. Then, with a flap of its wings, it entered, and instantly disappeared into the nearby pillar of purple fire. Using the fire to escape, its figure vanished without a trace. When the three-wood demon beast saw the extreme cold power of the Zilluo Jihua flame, its face instantly turned deathly pale. In its panic, it opened its mouth without a second thought, and actually spat out countless specks of yellow light. They were densely packed, seemingly endless. After these specks of light tumbled for a moment, they immediately transformed into thumb-sized, strange, and monstrous insects. Their upper bodies resembled centipedes, while their lower bodies were like scorpions. Their entire bodies were the color of egg yolk, and every single one looked ferocious. And these vicious insects swarmed forward, spitting out puff after puff of mist. In the blink of an eye, it formed into clouds of yellow mist, charging directly at the pillar of fire, as if trying to hold it off for a moment. Meanwhile, black demonic light flickered around the level 9 demon beast itself. Its arms swelled, growing a size thicker, as it slowly raised them, trying to forcefully push away the demon-subduing staff above its head, so it could then make a hasty escape. At this moment, the three-wood demon beast had completely given up any thought of fighting Han Li. It only wanted to save its own life and flee. The moment the yellow mist came into contact with the purple flame, the mist immediately began to freeze. A portion of the yellow mist instantly turned into glittering crystals, and the particles rained down from the sky. But the countless monstrous insects behind them kept spitting mist nonstop from their mouths, and so they barely managed to stop the fire pillar's advance. At that moment, a clear cry came from within the purple fire pillar. The flames of the entire pillar churned and condensed, and its form suddenly changed. It transformed into a giant bird over 100 feet tall, a purple flame bird, with crimson red eyes. The bird just gave a slight flap of its wings. It was several times more powerful than the original pillar of fire. Purple flames swarmed out, not only sweeping away the yellow mist before it, but also instantly dealing with the strange, insect-like runes behind it, freezing them into golden blocks of varying sizes, rendering them completely immobile. The fire duck's crimson eyes flashed, carrying an aura of boundless hunger and cold. It pounced towards the three-eyed demonic beast. The demonic beast was completely pinned down by the immense force of the demon scepter, unable to move an inch. From its third eye located at its waist, it shot out a beam of dark light. But when this dark beam hit the fire duck, it was like a clay ox sinking into the sea, having no effect whatsoever. Then, the purple fire duck let out a long cry, and in a flash pounced onto this level 9 demonic beast. The beast's body was engulfed by the vicious purple flames. After letting out a blood-curdling scream, its face filled with terror as it was turned into a giant purple block of ice. Its protective demonic aura was completely unable to block the purple flames in the slightest. A moment later, a figure flickered into view next to the giant block of ice. A humanoid puppet emerged from within a ball of fluorescent light. It rubbed its hands together, then thrust them both forward. Two golden arcs of lightning, emitting a thunderous roar, struck the giant block of ice. With a loud bang, the surface of the purple ice shattered inch by inch. The physical body of the level 9 demonic beast inside was naturally pulverized along with it. However, a flash of green light appeared from within. It was a spirit even larger than that of the long-eared, green-eyed demonic beast. A ring of green fire shot out from the shattered ice. In just a few flashes, it instantly teleported more than 20 zhang away. Trying to run now? Isn't it a bit too late? A voice drifted over leisurely. Immediately, with a crack of thunder, a silver arc of lightning suddenly appeared in front of the green fire. Then, Han Li emerged, his hands clasped behind his back. He smiled amidst the fluorescent glow, smirking as he watched the terrified demon beast's soul before him. This level 9 demon beast's soul knew the situation was dire. It flickered instantly, and just as it was about to flee again, Han Li simply flicked his hand. A green light flashed in his palm, revealing a green, comb-like wooden artifact. He waved it gently towards the demon's soul. Instantly, with a flash of spiritual light, a flower instantly materialized beneath the demon's soul. A large silver lotus. As its petals slowly rotated, the demon's soul found the surrounding spiritual energy had frozen. Its teleportation skill was suddenly rendered unusable. And then, within the silver lotus, the spiritual light from the petals at its core blazed brightly. From the heart of the lotus shot several strands of 7-colored Buddhist light, which instantly sucked the demon's soul inside. Then, with a pull faster than a flash of lightning, it was forcefully drawn into the silver lotus. After a terrified scream rang out, the silver lotus flashed wildly a few times, and then dissipated into nothingness. The demon's soul inside seemed to vanish with the wind, disappearing completely from this world. Han Li let out a soft sigh. The wooden artifact in his hand flickered and mysteriously vanished. At that moment, the humanoid puppet from over there floated lightly toward Han Li. Arriving before him, it held out the items in its hand, passing them to Han Li with a blank expression. There were the 2 storage bags, an ancient castle silver ring, and a thumb-sized, jet-black, round pearl. The round pearl was the third demon eye of that 3-eyed demon beast. Han Li's eyes narrowed. He picked up this material from the demon beast with 2 fingers, and examined it closely. He saw that other than being entirely jet-black and profound, there was nothing else unusual about it. However, when he held this demon eye up, bringing it face to face with his own gaze, his expression suddenly changed. He put it away along with the silver ring. Although that silver ring was a decent ancient treasure, for someone of Han Li's current standing, it was barely worth a second glance. As for the one that fought against Han Li's swarm of flying swords, the yellow streak of light, once it lost its master's control, it transformed into 4 flying daggers. This ancient treasure of 4 flying daggers was also easily collected by Han Li into his storage pouch. After putting away his flying swords and demon-subduing staff, Han Li didn't linger. Gathering his humanoid puppet, he turned into a streak of azure-red light and sped down the corridor. It was clear that the closer he got to the main hall, the fewer demon beasts and cultivators from the small extremes palace there were. But those that did appear were all high-level cultivators with profound spiritual power and powerful demon beasts. Among them were quite a few nascent soul cultivators and shape-shifting demon beasts. However, because their battles weren't blocking his path, Han Li just glanced at them from a distance. He certainly wasn't going to go looking for trouble. After passing several halls and courtyards, and crossing a large plaza, Han Li finally saw the main hall of the Void Spirit Hall. This main hall was enclosed by white jade walls. It was so vast you couldn't see the end in a single glance. It was impossible to tell how wide it was. However, the hall entrance facing him wasn't particularly large, only a little over 10 zhong high. It seemed to be just a side entrance. And right at this entrance, 2 people and 1 beast were unleashing powerful divine arts, locked in a fierce battle. The 2 cultivators were a man and a woman. The man was the supervisory elder from the Small Extremes Palace whom he had seen once before, that gray-haired elder with the surname Yi. And the other, a female cultivator with a beautiful face, was dressed in a set of white robes. Her robes fluttered in the air. She was none other than the woman in white. The opponent of these 2 was a gray-robed old man who looked no different from a human. His long hair shimmered with a faint, clear light, and his eyes flashed with a sharp, cold glint, giving him an intimidating aura without him even being angry. Bai Yaoyi and that elder Yi were controlling 2 silver, flying swords, and a strange jade screen that spewed black and white energy, locked in a fierce stalemate with the old man. The old man controlled a shimmering green net with one hand. With a sweep, the net expanded, transforming into a wide net of clear lightning over 10 zhong wide. The flashes of light and rumbling sounds were surprisingly underwhelming. With his other hand, however, he controlled a pitch-black, iron pestle-like treasure. With every shake, this treasure would conjure dozens of illusory images, attacking his opponents. And among these illusions, the mix of real and fake was masterfully executed. This old man, all by himself, was completely overwhelming Bai Yaoyi and her companion, and he was making it look easy. However, the jade screen in the supervising elder's hands seemed to possess infinite power. The black and white energy it sprayed seemed to absorb everything, whether it was the green lightning or the illusions of the black pestle. Most of it was blocked by this treasure. Plus, with Bai Yaoyi on the side, her 2 silver flying swords were also quite powerful. The 2 of them, working together, were able to hold their ground. A blue glint flashed in Han Li's eyes as he looked at the old man. As he scanned him, his pupils couldn't help but contract slightly, and his expression changed. This old man was actually a level 10 awakened demonic beast. Even with his bright sight spirit eye's divine ability, he couldn't see through to what kind of demonic beast its true form was. The streak of golden light, that was Han Li, reached the edge of the trio's battle in the blink of an eye. But without the slightest pause, and without stopping, the light suddenly intensified, becoming blindingly bright. And the streak of light was about to shoot past right underneath the 3 combatants, to rush into the main hall to die. That old man, being a level 10 demonic beast, how could he let someone slip away so easily right under his nose? Although with a single glance, he saw Han Li's true nature through the escaping light. He paid the mid-stage cultivation level no mind at all. With a casual flick of a single hand at that cyan light net, this net transformed. As the cyan cloud trembled, a loud rumbling sound arose. Suddenly, dozens of brilliant cyan thunderflames shot out from the net, raining down mercilessly on Han Li below. The moment these fist-sized thunderflames shot out, they all swelled to the size of a deer's head, instantly covering an area of over 20 zhong. This made it impossible for the escaping light below to evade. Inside the escaping light, Han Li furrowed his brow. The escaping light didn't slow in the slightest, but the humanoid puppet on his back suddenly materialized from within the escaping light. Then it raised its hand, and a small bow wrapped in red silk appeared in its grasp. Immediately after, its other hand gently drew the bowstring. An identical rumbling sound erupted. Countless fire arrows shot out from the escaping light to meet the cyan thunderbolts. As a result, the 2 attacks collided in midair. They instantly burst into blossoms of intermingling cyan and red light. A truly magnificent sight. The power of the fire arrows was far inferior to the cyan thunder. However, with this head-on strike, those cyan thunderflames were also momentarily slowed. In the blink of an eye, the cyan red light swept past the battlefield from below, and entered the main hall directly through the entrance. A sound of surprise escaped the old man's lips. With this level 10 demonic beast's astonishing cultivation, even with the escaping light obscuring his view, he had still seen the humanoid figure appear behind Han Li with a single glance. He was quite surprised by the puppet. However, seeing Han Li fly into the main hall, his brow furrowed. He didn't cast another spell to pursue him. Instead, his gaze returned, and he refocused his attention on the enemies before him, and silently tightened his grip on the seal in his hand. Bai Yaoyi was just as astonished. Although this woman, because the azure crimson escaping light was too fast, couldn't clearly see Han Li inside the light, that fleeting flash of azure and crimson was exceptionally familiar. After a moment of thought, she knew without a doubt that the master of the escaping light was Han Li. Could it be that the Great Elder and the others have already emerged from the Xianyu cave? The woman was naturally filled with surprise and uncertainty. But seeing the great enemy before her, whose commanded treasure suddenly surged in power, she had no time to dwell on the matter. She could only frantically pour her spiritual power into her 2 flying swords, commanding them to move like flood dragons bursting from the sea, to assist the elder with the surname Yi, in barely holding off the enemy's overwhelming assault. The gray-haired elder was equally astonished. That azure crimson light not only blocked the lightning fire strike from the old demon opposite them, but also rushed into the great hall. Although he found this escaping light somewhat unfamiliar, since the old demon had tried to stop it, and the light carried no trace of demonic energy, it was obviously a friend and not a foe, so he didn't give it much more thought. He simply urged the jade screen in the air, causing its black and white spiritual light to shine dazzlingly. Although he possessed this imitation spirit treasure, with the combined power of two mid-stage cultivators like himself and Bai Yaoyi, fighting a level 10 demonic beast was still a bit of a stretch. Just then, the light around Han Li subsided, and he appeared on the other side of the hall's entrance, over 10 zhang away, revealing his figure. His gaze swept across the scene, intending to first assess the situation in the great hall. But before he could get a clear look, he suddenly heard a burst of aged, maniacal laughter. Another one comes to die. Excellent. One more makes no difference. One less won't be missed. You can get in here with them. Han Li was taken aback, and before he could react, suddenly, a black light flashed in the space around him. Then, the surrounding scenery warped. He was suddenly and bizarrely transported into a space swirling with dark demonic energy. He had been inexplicably trapped by some kind of treasure. Han Li was, naturally, greatly alarmed. The surrounding demonic energy began to churn violently, surging toward him with overwhelming force, as if intending to crush him to death. Han Li took a deep breath. His hands, hidden in his sleeves, clenched into fists. Instantly, a clap of thunder erupted from his body. A layer of golden electrical arcs crackled into existence, immediately enveloping him. He then gave his sleeves a shake, and dozens of small golden swords shot out. They circled Han Li, transforming into a shield of golden light that protected him outside the electrical arcs. At that moment, the dark demonic energy swarmed toward Han Li from all directions, crashing against the golden light. Formed by the azure wind cloud swords, the golden light shimmered and danced about like countless spinning wheels, slashing the demonic energy, forcing it to retreat and disperse. It couldn't get near him at all. Seeing that this demonic energy wasn't as troublesome as he had imagined, Han Li felt a wave of relief, but his expression remained incredibly grim. His gaze swept relentlessly across his surroundings. Unfortunately, aside from the pitch-black darkness, there was nothing else that caught his attention. Those few flying swords of yours are refined rather well. This venerable one shall confiscate them, and keep them as playthings. The ancient voice came from an unknown location. To his surprise, it directly expressed its greed for Han Li's flying swords. Hearing this, Han Li was momentarily stunned. Then, a cold sneer appeared on his face. He gave one of his sleeves a flick. Instantly, a ball of tricolored light slipped out from his cuff. Its spiritual glow pulsed. The Sanyan Sha materialized in the palm of his hand. With his opponent sounding so arrogant, he had no choice but to be cautious. Just as he completed this action, the demonic energy above his head shook violently. At the same time, a whistling sound rose as the vast demonic energy churned like a stormy sea, and a massive vortex appeared out of thin air. This vortex was pitch black, with a diameter of more than 100 feet. The moment it appeared, it immediately began to spin rapidly, emitting a strange, shrieking sound. Vast sheets of black radiance immediately shot out from the center of the vortex, plummeting downwards with menacing force. Han Li's heart lurched. He knew this was bad. Without time to think, he hurriedly formed a sword seal with one hand. Around him, a long, clear cry immediately rang out from within the golden light. The originally grand and sweeping golden sword light suddenly contracted. As the light swirled ceaselessly, it unexpectedly transformed into a golden lotus flower and began to rotate slowly. At that very moment, the black radiance shone down, completely engulfing the golden lotus. The instant the two made contact, a sound erupted, a strange noise, as if countless blades were hacking through thorns. It was so piercingly harsh to the ear, it left one's spirit deeply unsettled. Han Li suddenly felt his own spirit tremble. The multitude of flying swords that had formed the golden lotus were all pulled at once by an immense force, as if about to break from his control and fly upwards. Han Li's expression changed slightly. He silently began to circulate all the magical power in his body. If it were an ordinary nascent soul, mid-stage cultivator facing this immense, sharp force, they would probably lose control of their life-bound treasure. However, after Han Li cultivated the Qinyuan sword art, his cultivation was far more profound than that of others at the same stage. Furthermore, these azure bamboo bee cloud swords had also been. It had been refined several times with newly added rare materials, making it incomparable to any ordinary magic treasure. As a result, the golden lotus, under Han Li's rapid hand seals and the forceful suppression of his magic power, finally shuddered and barely managed to resist the sharp force. It continued to spin unceasingly for Han Li, blocking the black glow spewing from the vortex. And at this moment, Han Li, without any hesitation, made the fan in his hand flash with light. Aiming at the vortex in the air, he fanned it forward with a grave expression. With a sharp hiss, a pillar of three-colored flame surged violently from the fan. smashing directly into the descending black glow. A violent and dense series of explosions immediately rang out where the two forces met. The moment the three-colored flame and the black glow made contact, it was just like boiling oil meeting cold water as they violently exploded. Clearly, the three-colored flame was far more powerful than the black glow. Amidst flashing runes, it only paused for a moment, before easily crushing the glow like breaking dead wood. And in one move, it rushed into the 100-foot-high vortex. Then, in a flash, it strangely disappeared. Han Li's eyes sharpened, staring at the sky without blinking. A moment later, a buzzing sound came from within the black vortex, and as the surrounding black aura began to expand and contract, a sky-shattering explosion erupted from its center, echoing through the air. Within a radius of hundreds of feet, the demonic energy surged and roiled violently, as if it had gone berserk. And just like that, the vortex, amidst a great flash of black light, vanished into thin air. Han Li's expression was grim. With a flick of his hand, the three-leaf fan disappeared as well, but his face showed not the slightest hint of triumph. After all, that one swing of the fan had instantly consumed nearly 20% of his magic power, and it didn't seem to have harmed his opponent in the slightest. A replica spirit treasure. So it's you. Is your surname Han? The aged voice transmitted, sounding somewhat surprised. You seem surprised. How do you know who I am? Han Li's expression flickered. He had a faint guess in his heart, but he asked slowly, his face impassive. Hee. With that three-colored flame of yours, and the virtuous spirit treasure, you're just too easy to recognize. Back on Kunwa Mountain, I heard you ruined a good plan of mine, the Master of Revival. Now what are you doing here at the Lesser Prosperity Palace? The old voice chuckled softly. I wonder if you'd care to explain. The Master of Revival. Your fellow Taoist Che of Wanyaogu? Han Li's expression changed, his heart sinking. Although he didn't know much about Wanyaogu. As for this Master of Wanyaogu, it was impossible that he had never heard of him. Although many people couldn't say for sure what this person's true cultivation level was. Han Li estimated that, if even that 10,000-year lion had a late-stage nascent soul cultivation, then this person was likely one of the few old monsters in the mortal realm comparable to a deity transformation cultivator. Otherwise, for Wanyaogu to be so brazenly established within the borders of the Great Gene, it would have long been wiped out countless times by the 10 great sects of both the righteous and demonic paths. That's right. It is I. I heard from Xiongshi that you have some connection to Fairy Linglong, and that you even went with her back to the 9th level of the demon-suppressing pagoda. Now that the true demonic chi on the 9th level has been resealed, and you've appeared here safe and sound, it seems Fairy Linglong has safely returned to the spirit realm. When the old voice spoke the words spirit realm, his tone couldn't help but change slightly, as if he were both excited and fearful. Linglong has indeed used the soul-reversing disc to return to the spirit realm. You know her? Han Li's expression was uncertain, as he asked slowly, but inside his sleeve, one of his hands glowed with spiritual light, as a green wooden ruler silently appeared in it. In his other hand, that item had silently appeared. The fire cauldron shrunk to a few inches in size. I'm just a nobody in the spirit realm. How could I possibly be acquainted with Demon King Jifei? However, since Fairy Linglong sent you out, I'm sure she must have left you something. Also, that 80-toothed spirit treasure that was originally suppressing the barrier, is it on your person as well? Don't even try to tell me that the magnetic teeth have already been taken to the spirit realm by Fairy Linglong. The 80-toothed treasure, without being refined by the Tongbao Julien, could never pass through the interrealm power to be brought to another world. The old voice suddenly changed, becoming ice cold. Han Li's eyelid twitched, but he remained silent. But in his sleeve, the 5 fingers gripping the green wooden tooth unconsciously tightened their grip. In the main hall of the Suling Palace in Shaojigong, the reason was that the mid-nascent soul stage Han Li had been ambushed by a cultivator comparable to the spirit transformation stage. It turned out to be the master of the 10,000 Demon Valley, Che Lao Guai. After he recognized Han Li and Yinyu's true forms, and their connection to Fairy Linglong, he actually tried to force Han Li to hand over the items. Han Li's eyelid twitched, but he remained silent. At the same time, a wave of powerful spiritual energy suddenly erupted from the surrounding demonic aura, pressing down directly on Han Li in the center. It crushed down with immense force. Although this pressure was genuine, he only swayed slightly, before standing his ground as if nothing had happened. The old voice let out a sound of surprised curiosity, but after sensing this powerful crushing force, he narrowed his eyes. A glint of golden light shot out from his eyes. As the saying goes, Taoist Che has been in life or death seclusion for who knows how many years, deep within the 10,000 Demon Valley. Under normal circumstances, he would never take a single step out of the valley, but now he has come to this place. Otherwise, with fellow Taoist Che's reputation, it's impossible that this is all the power he commands. A strange look appeared on his face. The aged voice was utterly devoid of emotion. This Han has no interest in the matters between you and Xiao Jigong. Not in the slightest. And I have no intention of interfering. I just want to use the transportation array here to leave, that's all. Fellow Taoist, if you don't want me to join forces with Xiao Jigong, then it would be best to let me go. Han Li's tone turned cold and was no longer polite. As long as it wasn't a spirit transformation stage cultivator, he himself had nothing to fear. Haha, such threatening words. I haven't heard anyone say something like that in many, many years. You possess the evil warding divine lightning. Your abilities are not insignificant. However, the evil warding divine lightning is only effective against demonic chi. And now you're trapped within my domain. Do you really think you can stand against me? Hand over the item Fairy Linglong left you and the 80 chi ruler. If I'm in a good mood, I might just spare your life. Han Li sighed. It seemed this elder demon Che that truly didn't take him seriously at all. It was clear he had no intention of letting him leave easily. Many cultivators have said that this replica is the closest in power to a genuine heaven-reaching spirit treasure. No wonder this old demon is so arrogant and unwilling to back down so easily. Since he knew words could not move his opponent, Han Li wasted no more time talking. He immediately flicked his hand. A ball of red light shot out. After circling once, it hovered several feet above his head, becoming perfectly still. It was the unnamed fire cauldron. Han Li formed a seal with both hands as a sharp incantation left his lips. The cauldron glowed brightly and began to expand wildly. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to be several zhang in size. Then, driven by a spell, the lid shot off. A humming sound emerged from within. Following that, fist-sized fire crows that surged out from the cauldron in a frenzy. In the blink of an eye, they densely swarmed the area around Han Li. The entire area was a sea of crimson light. There were at least 1,000 of them in total. It seems Han Li dared not underestimate the power of the 10,000 demon banner. He unleashed the full power of the fire cauldron at once. But that's not all. Without anyone noticing, the sunfire crow that was originally perched motionless on Han Li's shoulder, that had vanished at some point. It had actually blended into the flock of fire crows, with its entire body also shimmering with red light. It was impossible for anyone else to spot anything unusual about it. Just then, the rapid chanting from Han Li's lips ceased. With a sharp cry, all the fire crows spat out crimson flames, shooting them in all directions. In an instant, the area around Han Li was engulfed by wave after wave of towering fire, which crashed relentlessly against the surrounding demonic aura. The moment the demonic aura and the sea of fire clashed, black energy and crimson flames immediately intertwined and flashed. A series of explosions, like muffled thunder, roared incessantly between the two forces, actually forcing the surrounding demonic aura to slowly recede. Mere parlor tricks. You think you can break my 10,000 demon banner with this? In your dreams. Old Demon Che's cold sneer rang out. Immediately, an unusually sharp shriek came from his lips. A sound like screeching metal, piercing straight through the heavens. The demonic aura immediately gathered together. Countless demonic forms began to materialize within the aura. They were of all different kinds. The largest were a massive 20 to 30 plus zhang, while the smallest were only a few feet in size. But every one of them had a ferocious glint in their eyes, staring at Han Li in the center of the sea of fire. Han Li's heart went cold, because with just one look, he could see these demon beasts were a densely packed horde, arranged amidst the churning demonic energy, a teeming dark mass. A sharp laugh rang out. These beast puppets then charged ferociously from all directions like a tidal wave. Han Li's eye twitched, but he remained silent. Raising a hand, he shot a series of seals toward the fiery cauldron floating above his head. The path of Shu, verdant and misty. The misty arts are unleashed. The cauldron trembled, then immediately erupted with a brilliant red light. Crimson flames engulfed the entire giant cauldron, transforming it into a massive fireball. Countless streams of scorching fire shot out from the cauldron, joining the sea of flames. The temperature of the entire space suddenly rose significantly. They charged directly into the surrounding horde of beast puppets. Crimson flares of varying sizes, within the army of beast puppets, erupted in a dense and rapid barrage. The celestial fire crows flew about in a frenzy, and clashed with the demonic beasts. Flames danced. Demonic energy surged. The firelight and the black energy became entangled with each other, at one moment separating, at the next colliding. They were unexpectedly locked in a stalemate. Strangely, whether a beast was pierced through by a fire crow, it would reform within the demonic energy, instantly returning to its original state. On the other side, after tumbling in the flames for a moment, the fire crows would be reborn from the blaze. An icy, cold snort was heard. It was the voice of old Demon Che. Han Li's eyes flashed. He suddenly looked up, and his expression abruptly changed. He saw a vortex appear in the sky above, at the center of which demonic energy churned violently. A giant claw was slowly extending from within the demonic energy. It was a massive 30 to 40 zhang in size. 5 upright, long, sharp talons flashed with a sinister, cold light. Before the claw even landed, it created an overwhelming pressure, a suffocating feeling that was impossible to escape. The giant claw swooped down to strike. A gust of demonic wind howled downwards, causing the sea of fire around Han Li to flicker violently. The demon-subduing wand shot out from his sash. With a slight shimmer, it expanded to over 10 zhong in size. An earth-shattering boom erupted between the expanding staff and the demonic claw. It only managed to make the giant claw in the air pause for a moment. The 36 golden flying swords circling around him all hummed in unison. Then, converging above his head, they burst with brilliant golden light. In an instant, all the flying swords merged into one, forming a golden greatsword 5 to 6 zhong in length. Thick arcs of golden light erupted from the greatsword's surface. It suddenly transformed into a blinding streak of light, slashing straight for the descending giant claw. The 36 converged azure bamboo cloud-parting swords. This great sword, fueled by the full force of Han Li's spiritual power, was virtually unstoppable. With a brilliant flash of gold, the golden sword sliced the giant claw clean in two. A muffled grunt came from within the demonic aura. It seemed old Demon Che had suffered a minor setback. The two halves of the demonic claw disintegrated and scattered in the wind, turning into clouds of demonic chi, and vanishing in the blink of an eye. Hearing the grunt, a blue light flashed in Han Li's eyes. He suddenly pointed at the streak of light in the air. The brilliant golden light immediately swirled around, transforming into a golden python. It viciously struck at an empty spot in the void. With a loud bang, from a spot where there had been no warning whatsoever, erupted a blinding ball of black light. The golden python bit down on it, but failed to break through. And just then, behind the shield, a black radiance flashed. It was none other than old Demon Che, who had ambushed him outside the ice city. He now stood behind a black shield, watching the relentlessly attacking golden python. A hint of surprise appeared on his face. Gungjin metal. To think your flying sword was actually forged with such a rare material. No wonder it could pierce my skyscraper palm. But in the blink of an eye, the boy's expression returned to normal. Just as I expected. You really are just an incarnation. Han Li acted as if he hadn't heard the boy's words. Instead, he muttered something to himself. Seeing Han Li's nonchalant attitude, the boy laughed in fury. Without another word, he abruptly grabbed at the empty air. Heh heh. The myriad demon banner's power just now. That I was only using 20% of its strength. Next, this old man will obliterate both your body and soul. I'll let you taste the true power of the myriad demon banner. As soon as old Demon Che finished speaking, he unfurled the small banner in his hand, seemingly about to unleash some great divine ability with it. Han Li's expression hardened. He suddenly pointed into the sea of flames. Instantly, dozens of fire crows shot out from within, flying straight for the boy. Meanwhile, guided by his sword art, the giant golden sword let out a long hum. With a shudder, it transformed back into 30 golden flying swords. Each one was several feet long. Then, amidst the humming, they multiplied into hundreds of sword gleams. Coiling with a green aura, they surrounded the boy, and unleashed a frenzied downpour of slashes upon him. The boy sneered. He halted the small banner in his hand, and with his other hand, tapped the black iron shield before him. The black shield trembled slightly, and transformed into a hazy barrier of light, enveloping the boy within, completely unscathed. This unremarkable black barrier was incredibly tough. The boy, however, paid the attack no mind. He simply focused on channeling power into the small banner in his hand again. Although these fire crows were materialized from the essence of flame, but the young child paid it no mind. He was confident the defense formed by his iron shield was enough to block the fire pressure. Suddenly, the small gray banner flickered. With a slow wave, the demonic chi from the surrounding sea of fire near Han Li suddenly gave rise to wisps of gray mist. Then, a spatial fluctuation emanated from the mist, and 4 dark holes suddenly appeared. Each one seemed to swell in diameter, and it looked like something was about to emerge from within them. He immediately rushed in front of the distant black light shield. A thunderous roar echoed from behind him, and he vanished from his spot. At almost the same instant, the fire ducts, spitting crimson flames, crashed into the black light shield, exploding one after another. Meanwhile, hundreds of golden sword gleams were still being unleashed, relentlessly slashing at that pitch-black light shield. But just as the young child had predicted, that black light shield, this was also one of them. Han Li used his lightning evasion to disappear into the sea of fire, moving without a change in expression. But then, a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The incantation from his mouth paused for a moment, and with a flip of his other small hand, a black-green binding rope appeared. Instantly the rope, as if it had scales, shot out like a serpent's tongue, forming 7 or 8 loops in a flash. The next moment, with a flash of silver light, he happened to appear right under the black-green rope. He barely had time to react. It immediately flashed and tightened, about to bind him completely. Meanwhile, the cold smile on the child's face solidified as he opened his mouth. A dark light flickered within. It seemed that as soon as Han Li was restrained by the rope, he would spit out some powerful treasure. This was truly beyond Han Li's expectations. He never imagined such a miraculous treasure existed. His expression changed drastically, and he let out a sharp cry. His hands came together to form a seal. The emerald green light from his body burst forth, colliding with a flash from the dark cyan rope. He reappeared somewhere more than 10 zhong away. His face was just abnormally pale. Han Li, at this critical moment, spared no magical power, and once again used the Hualin talisman he had yet to fully refine. And that green talisman flickered amidst the ropes, then disintegrated into specks of emerald light. It then shot toward Han Li. All of this emerald light entered Han Li's body. When the child saw the piercing light, his expression turned ugly. A black light flashed twice in his mouth, and just as his mouth slowly closed, on the other side of the black light barrier, dozens of zhang away, a faint fluorescent light flashed. A cyan figure emerged. It was actually that humanoid puppet. A red light flared from its body, and a dense barrage of fire arrows erupted and shot out at extremely close range. At the same time, above the child's head, a jet-black short blade flashed into existence, and slashed down viciously and silently. Although the child was just an incarnation of old Demon Che, in terms of cultivation level and spiritual sense alone, this demon incarnation far surpassed even the old king that Song Lang had dealt with before. He was utterly trapped. Even though he was shocked, he immediately determined that the black flash above his head was the fatal threat. With a blur of one hand, at an incredible speed, he slammed his palm against the iron shield in front of him. Then he tilted his neck back, and after closing his small mouth, opened it once more. A coin-shaped magical artifact, wreathed in black energy, shot upwards. The barrage of fire arrows merged into a thick pillar of fire. At the same time, his palm struck the iron shield. The layer of light behind it burst forth brilliantly. The light barrier instantly thickened several times over. Immediately, following a deafening boom, a pillar of fire soared into the sky, rolling across the light barrier. The entire light barrier trembled violently. The worn flying dagger above it flashed, and silently pierced the top of the light barrier. With a sizzle, the worn flying dagger actually opened up a thin crack. In a flash, it appeared inside the light barrier. And at that very moment, the cone-shaped magic treasure, shrouded in black chi, shot over. With a sharp clang, it struck the flying dagger directly. The two of them flashed with light, and vanished without a trace. Fortunately, a spiritual sense message from the humanoid puppet indicated that the demon marrow flying dagger wasn't lost. It just wasn't nearby. It seemed to be temporarily trapped somewhere. Among the dozens of fire ducks blocked outside by the black light barrier, one of them suddenly spread its wings. This was the very one that, back in the Xuanli cave, had been infused with the supreme Yin True Flame. But without a long period of careful refinement, it naturally couldn't be easily transformed into the source flame of the supreme Yin True Flame. But now, urged on by Han Li, white, icy chi struck the light barrier. Instantly, the black light and white chi stood in stark contrast. A massive ice ball formed in an instant, and in the next moment, it froze the black light barrier, along with the young child inside. Everything was sealed together within the ice. Han Li raised an eyebrow, a hint of delight on his face. However, he of course knew that merely freezing it like this could never truly restrain a 10th-ranked demonic beast. But using this momentary delay, he formed hand seals with both hands. With one hand, he pointed toward the hundreds of sword lights near the giant block of ice. As he pointed, a sharp cry escaped his lips. The golden sword lights all shot high into the sky. Then, after circling briefly, they all began to hum in unison. They then flashed and scattered in all directions, and the sword lights began to vanish strangely, one by one. Seeing how troublesome this old demon's incarnation was, he was also secretly planning to set up the Great Gung Formation in order to kill this fiend. Immediately, countless silver threads shot out from the block of ice. As the green leaf waved, it sliced the giant ice block into pieces of various shapes and sizes, looking as if it was about to shatter the ice seal. And through the translucent golden ice, one could see that the black radiance inside had already vanished. It had turned back into a dark iron shield, positioned in front of the child. Meanwhile, the child himself was holding an artifact with one hand, which was flashing with a blinding fluorescent light. Those countless, fine silver threads had erupted from that very ball of light, and inside the fluorescent light, Han Li sighed to himself. The formation could no longer be completed. Immediately, with a grim expression, he flipped his palm over, and a verdant green wooden ruler materialized. He gently waved this spirit treasure towards the distant child. A flash of spiritual light appeared above the child's head, and a long, shimmering silver curtain manifested. A great expanse of 7-colored Buddhist light shone down from above. The child, who had just broken out of the ice, was slowed by the Buddhist light. His entire body immediately became dazed. At that very moment, the fluorescent light flared brightly, and a javelin several feet long appeared out of thin air in his hand. The child saw this, and the corner of his eye twitched. The small gray banner in his hand flew out on its own. He was actually able to ignore the Buddhist light and activate the curved banner in his hand despite the paralysis. The space around him twisted and warped strangely. At this instant, the silver javelin transformed into a silver streak, spinning rapidly as it shot forward. Instantly, a sharp shriek erupted. At such a close distance, the javelin had only just left his hand when it arrived in front of the child, striking the banner's barrier. Model. a bizarre scene unfolded. The silver projectile flashed with a fluorescent light. It easily froze right through the barrier wall. But incredibly, it emerged from the barrier right beside where it had entered. It grazed past, then froze through the barrier on the other side. It vanished in a flash. The humanoid puppet's divine sense that had already locked onto the child. However, a thought flashed through its mind, and it instantly understood. The barrier conjured by the bent waist sail that actually possessed the miraculous effect of distorting space. This was no ordinary divine ability. Breaking it would take more than just a moment. Dragging a small silver lock in one hand. That was staring at him coldly. A black, demonic light flickered unstably on its body. It was actually pushing apart the seven-colored Buddhist light that enveloped it, bit by bit. It looked as if it was about to break free again. Han Li's heart sank. It seemed this opponent was truly no ordinary late-stage cultivator. That he could be compared to. And fighting the opponent while trapped inside the bent waist sail's stasis. Thinking of this, his gaze shifted back to that thing. And he looked towards the 4 dark holes that had appeared around it. He saw that although the child was entangled by him, and couldn't continue to use certain divine abilities, faint roars could be heard coming from inside them. It seemed some kind of demon was about to struggle free from within. Han Li's brows furrowed. He let out a cold snort. He immediately made a decision. He was seen retracting the bailing teeth. He formed a seal with both hands. Instantly, the distant fire cauldron, the fire crow, the humanoid puppet, and the 36 golden artifacts all trembled violently. They gathered their power and rushed towards his location. Only the sunfire crow circled around that spatial barrier, then turned and opened its mouth. A stream of extremely cold, damp air sprayed out. However, the threads of light from the silver lock in the child's hand were relentless. It immediately shattered the golden ice into pieces once again. The freezing effect was minimal. By now, the tiny fire crows had already been completely destroyed. Han Li didn't even glance over. Instead, he flipped his palm. A yellow talisman appeared in his hand. On this talisman, runes swirled, and a spiritual light flickered. It was none other than the barrier-breaking talisman that Fairy Linglong had given him before she left. Speaking of this talisman, it naturally possessed a miraculous effect. But Han Li only had one. He felt that using it so rashly would be a bit of a waste. He still didn't know what other bizarre abilities the opponent had yet to reveal. Naturally, he wasn't willing to be caught off guard like that again. He decisively took out the talisman. However, he didn't take this talisman out just to break through that spatial barrier. Instead, he wanted to escape from this space entirely. After all, his opponent could still control the 10,000 demon banner. Even if he broke the barrier, killing his opponent would not be a quick affair. It would be better to first escape the range of his opponent's treasure. The talisman flashed with a blinding yellow light. Spatial fluctuations immediately appeared, constantly warping and twisting. He summoned all his nearby treasures, the flying swords, the fire crows, and the humanoid puppet, all at once, gathering them in this void. A vast, white portal materialized. It was surprisingly the spirit accumulation hall. The young child in the distance, who was in the middle of a breakthrough, saw this scene. His expression changed drastically. In his desperation, he immediately activated it with his divine sense, sparing no true essence. The 10,000 demon banner erupted with gray light. A gray pillar of light suddenly shot up from the banner. The young child was about to break free. An azure light enveloped Han Li's body. He had already transformed into an azure red streak and shot out. In a flash, his escaping light vanished without a trace. All of his nearby treasures, naturally, followed closely behind him and flew out. A deafening roar suddenly assaulted his ears. Han Li hurriedly commanded his flying sword, which transformed into golden light to shield his entire body. Only then did he scan the entire great hall, and he couldn't help but gasp in shock. This so-called void spirit hall was unbelievably vast. At a glance, it seemed to be at least 2,000 to 3,000 zhong wide, and high in the air, dozens of zhong away from him, floated a colossal object over 200 zhong long. It was incredibly a banner, and in the space where he was just gathering demonic chi, it looked exactly like that small gray banner he had seen. Except this one was thousands, if not tens of thousands of times larger. Moreover, on the surface of the hazy gray banner, demonic chi was roiling unstably, shrouding the large area near the entrance under the banner. No wonder when Han Li first entered this hall, he had absolutely no way to dodge it, and was pulled into the banner's immobilizing field. This one must be the true myriad demon banner. The small banner held by old Demon Che's incarnation inside was likely just a manifestation of a mere wisp of this banner's spiritual essence. But as his gaze swept forward, he saw another, exceptionally fierce battle in progress. Over there, a large portion of the hall had been completely transformed into a glacial landscape. The air was filled with a vast expanse of white, as the extreme cold chi howled relentlessly. The white jade floor, the towering hall pillars, and one after another, small icebergs, the tallest dozens of zhong high, the smallest several zhong, were scattered one by one along the edge of the glacier. And high in the sky above this glacial land, there was an ice phoenix over 10 zhong in size, its body a flawless, pure white. It was enveloped in a layer of vast, frigid mist, rampaging with all its might. Its opponents, however, were 3 high-level cultivators, a middle-aged, beautiful woman, and 2 white-haired old men. They were each commanding several different treasures, desperately trying to block the Ice Phoenix's attacks. Although their treasures were quite powerful, under the assault of the Ice Phoenix's sharp claws and wings, they were clearly at a disadvantage. And the other thing was what was encased in the ice. That layer of white, frigid flame on its body. He was once again startled. This frigid flame seemed to be from the Phoenix Cry ice flame that the woman, Bai Yaoyi, wielded. They were extremely similar. But in terms of power, the difference was simply far too great. Even if that Phoenix Cry ice flame was pushed to its absolute limit, it couldn't possibly possess such terrifying power. Although he was a bit suspicious about the connection between the Phoenix Cry ice flame and this ice phoenix, Han Li didn't dwell on it. Instead, he found it somewhat strange. Old Demon Che's incarnation was clearly holding the giant fan. So why didn't he go up and assist the ice phoenix in its attack? Instead, he had inexplicably trapped himself inside it. That beautiful woman was clearly the princess of the Lesser Sacred Palace, the other late-stage cultivator from the Lesser Sacred Palace. It seemed her divine abilities were far inferior to venerable Han Li's. Otherwise, facing this tier 10+ ice phoenix, she wouldn't need 2 mid-stage cultivators assisting her, only to barely be able to protect herself. After all, that ice phoenix's white frigid flame made Han Li stare, his eyes wide in disbelief. It was the first time he knew that extreme frigid power could unleash such immense might. This was practically a grand divine ability that could reverse the very laws of heaven and earth. Could it be that this ice phoenix and old demon Che don't get along? In an instant, he came up with a reason that barely made sense. But just at that moment, the demonic aura on the giant fan in the sky began to roil. Suddenly, a mangled corpse and several damaged treasures and artifacts fell from somewhere on the fan. They plummeted straight into the main hall. Caught completely off guard, Han Li was naturally startled. But upon closer inspection, he discovered that this tattered and incomplete corpse was actually wearing the robes of a lesser sacred palace cultivator. And judging by the attire, his status was clearly not low. He was likely one of the lesser sacred palace's nascent soul elders. A flash of astonishment crossed Han Li's face. Only then did he understand. There were actually other cultivators from Shaoji Palace trapped inside. No wonder this banner was just hovering in the air, merely guarding the entrance. He just didn't know about these cultivators from Shaoji Palace. How long had they been trapped? It seemed they must have used some kind of secret technique to be able to temporarily resist the 10,000 demon banner. Otherwise, with old Demon Che's cultivation level in his incarnation, plus all these cultivators, while being inside the 10,000 demon banner, it would have been impossible for them to last this long. But as long as the cultivators inside the banner hadn't all been subdued, old Demon Che probably couldn't immediately use this banner to come after him. As this thought flashed through his mind like lightning, Han Li felt greatly relieved. It was over 100 zhong wide and 6 or 7 zhong high. But looking from a distance, there was 1 large and 2 small. A total of 3 teleportation arrays lined up on the platform. Han Li was overjoyed. Suddenly, his expression shifted, and a strange look appeared on his face. The humanoid puppet standing behind him suddenly made a grabbing motion with one hand towards the empty air. Nearby, space twisted and distorted for a moment, and a short black blade shot out in a flash. It was the very same marrow-refining flying dagger that had mysteriously disappeared in the demonic chi space. This treasure had somehow broken free from its static state on its own, and had actually returned from some unknown place out of thin air. The puppet waved its embroidered sleeve, and the marrow-refining flying dagger vanished in a flash, having been put away. Han Li's eyebrow twitched, but he didn't show much of an expression. Instead, his body flared with spiritual light and transformed into a streak of light. He brought with him thousands of fire crows and other treasures like the flying swords, shooting straight towards the high platform. As long as he could escape from this ethereal spirit hall, he couldn't care less about Shaoji Palace and these demonic beasts, about who would ultimately win or lose, or who would live or die. A moment later, a streak of light arrived at the center of the great hall. However, his escaping light didn't just swagger straight through. Instead, it took a wide arc, skirting around the edge of the hall. But because the great hall was mostly affected by the extreme cold of the ice phoenix, as Han Li made his way around, a purple glow inevitably flashed across his body. He was immediately covered from head to toe in the purple apex fire. The intense cold was repelled and kept at bay. It could no longer affect Han Li in any way. Qianlong Ice Flame, you're also one of Ziyajigong's cultivators? Don't think that by modifying this ice flame a bit, you can fool me. At the center of the hall, the ice phoenix, which had been forcing back Zhenjiang, Princess Ziyajigong, and their companions step by step, was utterly astonished when it saw him break out of the banner. It had been surprised for a long time, as he passed by on the side. After all, since Han Li was able to escape from the myriad demon banner, he was certainly no ordinary cultivator. It didn't want to stir up more trouble by provoking a powerful enemy. But when the purple flame on Han Li's body flared to life, the Ice Phoenix's eyes suddenly turned crimson. It let out a piercing shriek, as if the purple apex fire had triggered something within it. It acted as if the Qianlong ice flame was its mortal enemy. Han Li, in his streak of light, was taken aback. He hadn't yet understood what was happening, when the Ice Phoenix suddenly let out a long, resentful cry. It violently flapped one of its ice wings towards Han Li. The ice feathers on this wing, in an instant, shot through the air like countless arrows. Then, just a short distance away from the wing, they all transformed into half-a-foot-long, crystal-clear flying blades, coming straight for Han Li in a dense swarm that blotted out the sky. Han Li, who was in mid-flight, saw this, and was greatly startled to have so many blades of light sweeping toward him at once. Never mind their power model, was enough to strike fear into anyone's heart. What's more, these flying swords were all from that level 10 Ice Phoenix, formed from its own icy rain. Their power was definitely not to be underestimated. With no time to think, Han Li's escaping light didn't pause for even a moment. Instead, with a flash, it became even faster. But at the same time, hundreds of streaks shot out from his escaping light, golden sword light, and a dense barrage of crimson flames, directly intercepting those crystal-clear sword lights. Golden light and white radiance intertwined and flashed. Amidst orbs of crimson flames and pillars of fire, Han Li, as a streak of azure and crimson light, had already escaped the center of the great hall, shooting towards the high platform in a corner of the hall in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, the Ice Phoenix was taken aback. It hadn't expected that its attack couldn't even manage to hold Han Li down for a single moment. This was far beyond what one could normally imagine. In its heart, it had long since regarded Han Li as equal to the incarnation of that person from long ago. With its killing intent flaring, its enormous body suddenly blurred, and amidst a flurry of after-images, it transformed, creating 3 identical clones. 2 of them continued without pause, still pouncing towards their opponents, the princess and her 2 companions. Meanwhile, the 3rd Ice Phoenix flapped its icy wings. Immediately, his escaping light came to a halt, stopping dead in his tracks. At that moment, he was just over 100 zhong away from the teleportation array. He had no intention of being careless, and plunging headfirst into the great maw of that newly appeared Ice Phoenix. At the same time, with a flick of his wrist, a thunderous roar erupted. Dozens of thumb-thick golden arcs shot out fiercely from the palm of his hand, forming a great net with Han Li at its center, covering everything beneath it. Almost at the same time, somewhere outside Han Li's tent, space distorted slightly. The Ice Phoenix emerged amidst a flash of white light. Han Li, at the mid-yuaning stage, inside the profound spirit treasure, the myriad demon's banner, had temporarily dodged the attack's brunt, using a boundary-breaking talisman to escape the void spirit hall's plaza. He had planned to secretly use the teleportation array to flee this place. But outside the hall, he was met with the same opposition. Han Li was naturally watching the demon's movements. The moment he saw this, his heart sank. As Han Li was somewhere outside the tent, space began to distort strangely. The Ice Phoenix appeared amidst a flash of white light. A flash of green appeared on Han Li's face. He formed a hand seal, but instead, it opened its sharp beak, aiming down from the sky. Once airborne, a loud screech shook the heavens. The golden aura shattered inch by inch in the fierce wind. A moment later, it vanished without a trace. Han Li was greatly alarmed. He hastily tried to summon the Eidichi ruler hidden in his embroidered robe. The sound of wind and thunder erupted. After the green light stagnated, it stirred up a giant wave over 30 zhong high. It plunged headfirst into the vast white chill, disappearing within the freezing mist, concealed without a trace. The corner of Han Li's mouth twitched. A blue light flickered erratically in his pupils. He raised a single hand, and hastily waved it in front of him. Instantly, with a sizzle, a hazy purple flame shot into the air, forming a barrier in front of Han Li. The cold wave, without any hesitation, slammed into this wall of violet nether flame. The 2 colors, white and purple, clashed in a brilliant intertwined display. The 2 energies churned as if they were water and fire, utterly incompatible, rolling unstably, but it was clear that the balance was beginning to tip against Han Li. Suddenly, the purple flames on his body seemed to find an outlet. Instantly, the previously tipping purple barrier slowly began to straighten up again. It suddenly flew out from the cold mist, and like lightning, it clawed down at Han Li's arms. The cold glint from these claws flickered menacingly. One look, and you could tell they were incredibly sharp. Even though Han Li had cultivated the Nether King acupoint, his arms would undoubtedly have been crippled. With a flick of one of his great sleeves, 2 plumes of green threads suddenly shot out from within. They intercepted and blocked the sharp claws just in time. Then, with a flash of green light, they flew like a rustling forest, and with a quick rap, they bound the pair of claws tightly. A surprised grunt came from the cold mist opposite Han Li. Dozens of feet in the air above Han Li, a white light suddenly flashed. A half-foot-long, sharp, golden and silver beak suddenly thrust out most of its length. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning. Such a surprise attack at this close a distance. Even after Han Li reacted, he had no defense whatsoever, just as the sharp beak was about to break through. The protective purple flames around Han Li's body. A loud bang rang out. Amidst a burst of silver light, a flash of spiritual light appeared beside the sharp beak, and a faint, light figure emerged. It was just retracting a fist that seemed to be made of pure silver. This was that humanoid puppet. It turned out that as soon as Han Li engaged the Ice Phoenix, he had summoned it. Now it had arrived just in time to block this dangerous blow. Its strike having missed, the figure of the level 10 Ice Phoenix appeared out of thin air. It lowered its head and looked at its own sharp claws, bound by the green threads. A cold snort came from its beak. Its body suddenly grew several times larger. But when it tried to retract its claws, they didn't budge an inch. This time, a hint of surprise flashed in the Ice Phoenix's eyes. Two beams of piercing white light shot out from them, wrapping around its own claws. Within the flashing white light, the green threads, like withered grass, were severed one after another. They turned out to be two small, milky white items. Han Li recognized these two flying daggers at a glance. At the same time, he frowned. These azure spiritual threads were from the glowing aura on the surface of the Shutian Ding in his sleeve, having materialized into form. It seems that even for a celestial spirit treasure, relying on just a tiny bit of its power, was still not enough to handle a 10th level demonic beast. His expression turned grim. A purple light flashed across his body, and his figure blurred before splitting into three. Three identical phantoms appeared in a flash. It was impossible to tell which was real, startling the Ice Phoenix opposite him. The white feathers on its wings suddenly froze. And at that very moment, the three phantoms suddenly transformed into three streaks of azure red light, and shot off in different directions. Their escape speed was so incredible that in an instant they all appeared, dozens of yards away. With a shriek, it also shot off in retreat. Its target was also the teleportation platform in the corner of the Great Hall. A sharp screech came from its mouth. Its entire body flashed with white light, and its form began to shrink rapidly. Dressed in a silver gown, the woman completed her transformation. She immediately tapped a spirit beast pouch at her waist. Instantly, for hissing sounds came from within the pouch, and shot out from inside. Two balls of white light emerged. After circling once, each revealed a pure white centipede with 4 wings on its back. Their cultivation level was clearly extraordinary, and they seemed to have already evolved to the 4th stage. Han Li turned his head, and happened to witness this scene. But before she could even process a thought, one of the phantoms let out a whoosh, and suddenly vanished from its spot. The next moment, it inexplicably appeared, in front of Han Li's real body and the other phantom. It opened its mouth and sprayed a frosty white mist directly at them. Naturally, Han Li wouldn't. In a flash of light, it easily dodged the attack. But the other phantom simply flew back in the original direction. As a result, it was struck by that blast of cold air. Instantly, with a soft tearing sound, a vast white rift appeared. This woman, without even breaking a sweat, seemed to have torn space itself open. Then, with a flicker of his body, he vanished into the void. The silver-robed woman eerily reappeared. Then, with a flicker of her body, she was back on the high platform. She raised a delicate hand. Her bright eyes, as cold as ice, stared intently at the sky. But he didn't dare force his way into the teleportation array now. Otherwise, if she attacked randomly from the outside, who knows what effect it would have on the teleportation. I have no quarrel with the demon clan. Do you really want to fight me to the death? And you think you can just slip away from me so easily? On the silver-robed woman's beautiful face, a thick layer of killing intent appeared. She said with an unusual coldness, "You don't even have the wings to think of escaping. Such arrogance. In that case, I won't hold back either. I'd like to properly experience the divine powers of you, the master of the coastal seas." When Han Li heard this, he laughed in a fit of rage. The fiery pressure that let out a series of deafening roars. The sheer force was astounding. At the same time, a fluorescent light flashed beside Han Li. A humanoid puppet suddenly materialized. A small, pitch-black vial flew out with a whiz. From the vial's mouth, 5 skeletons in a white mist began to tremble. And shakily emerged. Balls of green fire flashed endlessly in their eyes. The 5 demons let out a series of strange, guttural cries. All their skulls stared sinisterly. At the Ice Phoenix opposite them. Each one of them looked incredibly bloodthirsty. The 5 child concordant demons. The Ice Phoenix's expression froze. Immediately her gaze swept over the humanoid puppet next to him. The solemn look on her face intensified. A mechanical puppet. Since when did the human realm have the ability to craft a puppet of this level? It's probably impossible for me to kill you, but I can forcibly keep you here for a while. If you're not afraid of an error during your teleportation, then by all means come and try it. She was surprised he could say that so calmly. Without you personally controlling them, your avatars would be lucky to just protect themselves. I refuse to believe you alone can take on the 5 devils, and the puppet combined. Those 2 Ice Phoenix avatars were clearly no match for Xiao Jigong's group of 3. They were now at a great disadvantage. But even so, they were in imminent danger. That beautiful woman kept glancing over in Han Li's direction. but had absolutely no intention of coming to help this key ally of hers. Not even to lend a hand. It seems this princess, Xiao Jigong. Han Li didn't feel any anger in his heart. If he were in her shoes, he would likely do the same. Han Li sighed. He immediately formed a hand seal, about to command the 5 devils and the puppet to attack the Ice Phoenix together, only by heavily injuring or outright killing this woman. But just at that moment, the woman across from him had a sudden change of heart. Before he could understand why she was showing such a strange expression, she suddenly pressed down on the air. Then a familiar, sinister voice echoed. The spiritual energy around Han Li suddenly changed, and layers of gray light began to ripple outwards. At the same time, his surroundings blurred. Han Li was greatly alarmed. The precept-breaking talisman shot out instantly. The surrounding scenery shimmered and then returned to normal. And in that moment of delay, the golden light and the dense swarm of fire crows around Han Li immediately shot out in all directions. Han Li raised a hand. The banner had appeared above his head at some unknown time. It was showering down waves of gray radiance from above, rushing down to envelop him. Luckily, back when he broke the myriad demon banner's restriction, he hadn't used up all of the precept-breaking talisman's power. Otherwise, he would not have escaped this disaster. But even so, his expression still turned extremely ugly. Now trying to escape so easily, his heart sank. Han Li naturally didn't want to be drawn into the myriad demon banner and be trapped by its power. Immediately, without a second thought, an incantation flowed from his lips. Controlling the demonic arts, he urged them on at the same time. Amidst a flash of brilliant light, the 5 skeletons actually condensed and merged. A giant skeleton, 30 feet tall, took form and emerged. Its long bone blades were suddenly swung in a cross-slash towards the sky. A cross-shaped blade light, flashing with a frightening chill, struck the descending gray radiance and cut it to pieces. A heaven-shaking, earth-shattering sound erupted. The demonic energy and chilling light intertwined and flickered, becoming entangled for a moment. The giant skeleton then suddenly soared into the air, its twin blades dancing wildly in its hands. Crescent-shaped arcs of chilling light howled out one after another. From within the myriad demon banner came old demon Che's enraged roar. He then reappeared in a flash, grabbing the banner in his hand. Then, with a flicker of his body, he thought, "It's still easier to wield this after I revert to my true form." When the giant white skeleton saw this, it spat out a grayish-white, demonic energy, and its pair of bone blades also shrank in size. It only goes after young children. These 5 subdemons have undergone a special ritual, so they are unaffected by the restraints of the myriad demon banner. Furthermore, without a specific demon-subduing artifact, these 5 demons are practically immortal, no matter how many times you shatter them. This is especially true for human cultivators. Even if other divine abilities could finish them off, it would be anything but quick. However, seeing the skeletons charging wildly, this incarnation of old demon Che could only frown and wave his hand. The scythe in his hand released a surge of eerie, black demonic chi, temporarily tangling with the skeletons. Yet, 60% of his attention was focused on Han Li. He was only using 40% of his focus to deal with the 5 demons. At this moment, Han Li stood shoulder to shoulder with the humanoid puppet, his expression grim and uncertain. He hadn't moved an inch, showing no intention of attacking at all. It seemed he hoped to prolong the stalemate, or perhaps he was afraid that if he moved, it would give Han Li an opportunity to exploit an opening and quickly escape through the teleportation array. Above the 2 small immortal teleportation arrays, predatorily eyeing Han Li in his Ice Phoenix form, he knew very well that these 2 teleportation arrays were the only way out of this hall. The reason Han Li didn't make a move was actually quite simple. He was just wary of the demon's space-tearing ability. Even with his numerous techniques, he couldn't immediately figure out a way to force this demon back and escape safely. But just then, suddenly, from the center of the great hall behind them, a wild, booming laugh echoed out. "I'm gonna get a good workout this time. Let's get this straight, don't stop me before I've had my fun." Han Li was startled and swept his divine sense behind him. It suddenly abandoned the battle over there and shot towards Han Li. A hazy green cloud of Yin energy followed it like a shadow. Within it, the faint figure of a woman flickered restlessly, and instantly felt the powerful Yin energy from the woman in the ghostly aura. Energy. Jin Yu is a character at the late nascent soul stage. Jin is a powerful ghost cultivator and an old acquaintance. Fellow Taoist Han, there's no need to panic. This princess will not let them gang up on you. I'll lend you a helping hand. Clearly, this woman was afraid she would be ganged up on and killed first. And then, with no one to hold them back, they would turn and deal with young Master Ji. They were after young Master Ji from the very beginning. However, the beautiful woman recognized his identity at a glance. But the ghost cultivator in the green aura was clearly no ordinary being, giving him an immense sense of pressure. "Netherworld Ghost Mother, it's you. You dare meddle in this old man's affairs?" The young child fighting the giant skeleton over there has. That woman in the green aura is the one who back then single-handedly. He seems to know the origin of the woman in the green aura. "You actually know this old woman's name?" I heard that you, fellow Taoist, back when this ghost mother had just undergone spirit decomposition, were already able to advance to the spirit transformation stage. That can't be a pleasant feeling. Besides, although you ice phoenixes have long lifespans, if you don't advance soon, the woman in the ghostly aura seemed to know the level 10 ice phoenix's situation like the back of her hand. The moment she spoke, she revealed the silver-robed woman's greatest secret. The silver-robed woman's beautiful face suddenly turned grim. Hanli, however, gasped. Only then did he realize why this ice phoenix was having such a difficult time. I let you out, not for you to catch up with old friends. Relax. As long as there are no spirit transformation stage cultivators present, protecting your life is as easy as flipping my hand. But don't you forget what you promised me earlier. You dared to forcefully summon me. Afterwards, with energy invading your body, the streak of light paused and stopped to the side. Fellow Taoist Han, let's join forces and eliminate this lord of the coastal region. What do you say? The beautiful woman turned her hand. Hanli stroked his chin and nodded imperceptibly. When the beautiful woman heard this, the woman in silver standing below suddenly let out a cold laugh. With a deafening boom, a small teleportation formation behind her was brutally split right down the middle into two halves. Both Han Li and the beautiful woman's expressions changed drastically. If you two plan to attack me together, then don't blame me for destroying this last one as well. The woman in silver said leisurely, looking up at the two in the air. What is the meaning of this? If you destroy the teleportation formation, you won't be able to leave the Void Spirit Hall either. Fellow Taoist, have you perhaps forgotten how I snuck into the Void Spirit Hall? The woman in silver let out a string of soft giggles. Although her body swayed like a flower in the wind, her eyes were ice cold. Han Li's expression turned grim. As long as you, fellow Taoist, join forces with me, we can break the restriction in a little over 10 days, and leave through the main gate of this hall. The beautiful woman pondered for a moment, then said this to Han Li. But Han Li frowned, his expression clouded with uncertainty. If he hadn't ambushed and killed those 3 great cultivators in Xianling Cave, he naturally could have joined forces with the beautiful woman to eliminate the demons first. But now, forget about spending over 10 days. The disturbance in Xianling Cave would be discovered. How could he afford to delay for so long? Her heart sank, seeing that only Han Li had appeared, while the other cultivators, who entered Xianling Cave, had not appeared with him, had actually already made this princess of the Lesser Polarity Palace suspicious. However, with a great enemy before them, she could only pretend to be oblivious. Her lips moved slightly, as if sending a voice transmission to the Yellow Springs ghost mother standing behind her. Immediately, a green thread as thin as a hair shot out silently from within the mist. It vanished in a flash, leaving no trace behind. Even though that green thread was incredibly well hidden, the ice phoenix below seemed to have noticed something. It immediately aimed one hand at another, smaller teleportation array. With a flick of its 5 fingers, 5 streams of white sword energy shot out with a whoosh. A vast, white, chilly aura blasted downwards. When Han Li saw this, his expression shifted. It was none other than the Yellow Springs ghost mother. Seeing the 5 streams of sword energy and the chilly aura attacking, he thrust a single palm out toward each of them. The movement seemed light and effortless, as if it had no substance. The attacks suddenly shattered inch by inch and disintegrated, vanishing into thin air with the wind. After a brief pause, the remaining energy shot back the way it came, throwing the beast, which had been attacking fruitlessly, into a panicked scramble. Han Li's figure materialized inside the smaller teleportation array. Without the slightest hesitation, he raised a hand, and an incantation seal struck the edge of the array. Then, his other hand rapidly formed a seal, and he whispered a few words of a rapid incantation. At almost the exact same time, a figure flickered into existence behind him. That humanoid puppet appeared, staying close to Han Li. A dense barrage of fiery arrows, like a torrential storm, flew toward the silver-robed woman. Meanwhile, the skeleton in the distance that was desperately attacking the child. Its eyes flashed with a bloody light. In an instant, without any warning, it transformed into 5 ghostly heads. Then, amidst the roiling demonic energy, they abruptly vanished. The next moment, 5 streams of grayish-white energy erupted from above Han Li's head. They reformed into 5 ghostly heads, each the size of a carriage wheel. At this moment, the entire array began to pulse with white light. Standing within it, Han Li stared intently at the silver-robed woman in the distance. His face was etched with a grave expression. This all happened as fast as a bolt of lightning. Han Li's actions had clearly taken both the beautiful woman and the silver-robed woman by surprise. It was completely beyond their expectations. The beautiful woman's expression changed drastically. Without another word, her figure flickered, and she shot over as a streak of silver-red light. At the same time, her delicate cry destroyed it. The formation. Don't let him get away. She was definitely talking about Han Li, who was standing in the formation. After all, regardless of whether Han Li was actually causing any trouble, to just let him walk away like this. Princess Jiyu, even with the aid of the Yellow Springs ghost mother. A faint silver curtain seemed to be slowly unfurling. A wave of 7-colored Buddhist light immediately shot up to meet it, but it was clearly a step too late. A hint of delight couldn't help but show on Han Li's face. Because as he watched, the woman in silver was being enveloped by the flash of light, as countless streams of golden sword chi erupted from his body. In that instant, it made her look like a golden hedgehog. If it were that level 10 ice phoenix, and it dared to appear near the formation, it would definitely be engulfed by the attack, and could only struggle to defend itself. This sword chi shouldn't have been able to stop Han Li's teleportation at all. But, much to Han Li's surprise, the woman in silver did not appear within the shroud of sword chi. Instead, she emerged over 20 zhang away, appearing above another formation that was several times larger. A cold sneer appeared on the woman's lips. Her entire body erupted in a blinding white light. She aimed a single hand at Han Li, and made a grasping motion in the empty air. A giant, semi-transparent hand of light strangely materialized, and began to slowly descend. Han Li's expression darkened. With a single thought from his divine sense, he changed their direction, sending them all slashing up towards the sky. It made the small area above Han Li's head instantly turn blindingly golden. Just as he was about to see if this could stop the object's descent, the distant woman in silver's face turned pale. The hand of light, however, flashed in the air and vanished. The next moment, it reappeared just inches above Han Li's head. It instantly enveloped the entire transportation array within it. Before he could even react, I had a bad feeling. Before I could even react, all I heard was a sharp cry. Pan and I vanished into the small teleportation array. Disappearing along with him was the ghost head transformed from the woozy demon, as well as that humanoid puppet. The entire teleportation array was suddenly empty. The white light of the teleportation naturally faded. This caused the one who was just about to arrive, the little rooster princess, to feel a chill in her heart. Her streak of light came to an abrupt halt. However, at this moment, the woman transformed from the ice phoenix. Her outstretched fair hand was still disintegrating inch by inch, but her cheeks were an abnormal, crimson red, and the white light around her body flickered erratically. Seeing this, he no longer hesitated. He flicked his hand, and a dozen or so silver glints shot out in a flash, transforming into more than 10 exceptionally sharp silver nails. Even if he himself possessed the innate talent for spatial divine abilities, he should only be able to use them. After advancing to the spirit transformation realm, he was unable to fend off a powerful enemy at the same time. Left with no choice, he had to pause his fingers and abruptly fling them towards the area below him. With a loud boom, white light flashed in the large teleportation array below. The disappearing halo of light, along with Han Li and the puppet, and the woozy demon, all reappeared within it. But the halo of light flickered once, then dissipated and vanished. Han Li's body swayed a few times, as if he hadn't yet recovered from the inexplicable spatial transfer and the resulting dizziness. But at that moment, the woman in silver had already released a brilliant blue brocade robe, which intercepted the dozen or so silver nails. Then, without a second thought, she flicked her sleeves downward, as if they were endless. They completely enveloped Han Li below in a blinding glare. From its surface, countless fine green threads shot out, intertwining and shimmering, actually forming a giant web of light to protect itself within. Meanwhile, the ghost head transformed from Wu Mo let out strange, unending cries. It sprayed grayish-white demonic chi, breaking through the brilliant light, and pounced into the air. As for that humanoid puppet, its figure flickered and then vanished without a trace. At this moment, the young child sparrow, having lost its opponent in the distance, once again sent the curved sail in its hand up into the air. This time it grew enormous again, and began to tumble and sway endlessly within the demonic aura. One by one, pitch-black demonic beast phantoms began to materialize from the sail, looking as if they were about to truly take form. However, as for what Han Li was doing, the wind and thunder wings on his back had already flared. He was about to execute the thunder escape technique, to immediately flee back to the small teleportation array. Even if he had already missed the best opportunity to teleport, the saying life is unpredictable rings true. Just when Han Li thought he had no choice but to fight the two demons, and the others in a desperate struggle, getting further entangled, a sudden change occurred. The profound sky top, which had originally been spewing countless green spiritual threads, without being activated by Han Li, suddenly began to shake violently. It flickered once and disappeared from sight. Then, the entire magic formation began to glow with a green spiritual light, and manifested a screen of green light, enveloping Han Li, Wu Zimo, and all the others within it. Toward the teleportation array, where Han Li was, a finger was suddenly pointed in a frenzied manner. It looked like a desperate, crazed attempt. 10 dazzling silver beams, shot out in an instant, was in the middle of teleporting, where exactly the teleportation array would send Han Li. But naturally, he wasn't willing to just watch helplessly. Without a second thought, he activated a magical art. Instantly, an overwhelming torrent of gold and silver sword light appeared. No matter the 10 silver beams striking it, or the hundreds of gold and silver, the sword light slashed down, but surprisingly, it didn't even cause a ripple on the light barrier. It seemed indestructible. At this moment, it wasn't just them. Han Li, trapped inside, was in a frantic state. From the soul search he performed on the nascent soul cultivator, if he remembered correctly, then he would be in deep trouble. Therefore, once trapped in the teleportation array, he naturally had to desperately break through the light barrier to get out. Han Li gritted his teeth. A ball of three-colored light appeared in his hand. He actually intended to use the three-flame fan to attack this light barrier. However, at such a close distance, Han Li naturally didn't dare to use its full power, or he himself would be caught in the fan's blast. A layer of three-colored flames emerged on the fan's surface. Then, like a flaming blade, the power of the three-flame fan was truly not to be underestimated. That seemingly incomparably thick light barrier was forcefully torn open, creating a crack, but it was enough for Han Li to escape through it. Han Li was overjoyed. The silver-robed woman actually tore through space and appeared outside. She raised a hand, and a jade-like arm suddenly transformed into a crystalline claw. In a flash, the claw reached in through the crack. Although he wanted to leave this place, he absolutely refused to fall into the hands of this 10th level Ice Phoenix. Just as he was about to activate the three-flame fan again, he suddenly put it away. In its place, a brilliant blue token appeared. It was the Great Teleportation Token. The moment Han Li took out this token, it shone with a dazzling light. At the same time, the azure light barrier shattered and collapsed. As for Han Li, who was inside the light barrier, upon seeing this, the princess of Xiaoji Palace was first startled. Then a strange expression, a mix of joy and annoyance, appeared on her face. The joy, naturally, came from a powerful enemy vanishing into thin air. The older one had just witnessed Xiao Jigong establish his sect, but then it vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, the young child in the distance wore a grim expression. But then his face flushed for a moment, and he shot a fierce glare at Mei Fu. A long cry that could pierce the heavens erupted from his mouth. Then he suddenly charged at the outer fiend in the sky. A paper talisman on it immediately flipped up, and its fiendish energy surged several times over. Then, under the swarm of fiendish shadows, billowing, murky fiendish energy filled the entire grand hall, churning and covering the sky as it rushed towards Mei Fu. Mei Fu's expression changed, but a green light flashed in front of her. The Yellow Springs Ghost Mother, wreathed in ghostly energy, appeared before Mei Fu. Gazing at the countless fiendish shadows in the sky, the sound of ghostly wails and wolfish howls erupted from the ground below. No, an aura of energy, no less powerful than the fiendish energy above, spread across the ground. It then swirled into massive waves. In an instant, the green mist and the black energy intertwined and clashed. Fiendish shadows and ghostly figures flickered in and out of sight within the chaos. This Yellow Springs Ghost Mother, with just her ghostly form, rubbed her hands together and launched an attack at the fiendish energy in the sky. For a moment, the entire hall was filled with a deafening roar. The person, the fiend, and the ghost all vanished into the miasma of fiendish energy and ghostly mist. An earth-shattering sound erupted. Inside a stone chamber over 30 zhang wide, there was a teleportation array similar to the one in the ethereal spirit hall. He showed no expression on his face, as he faced off against a stunningly beautiful woman. And behind him, the demonic head formed by the woozy demon hovered in the fiendish air, staring at the woman with a bloodthirsty demonic glint in its eyes. From time to time, a low growl rumbled from its mouth, as if waiting for just one command from Han Li, before it would immediately lunge forward. The woman opposite them was of course the one who had been accidentally pulled into the teleportation array, the level 10 Ice Phoenix. She had already sensed that something was amiss. She had intended to immediately tear open space and escape the array. But unexpectedly, under the mutual influence of the spatial forces, this was clearly not a short-distance teleportation. If it weren't for this demon, who possessed an innate spatial divine ability, she likely would have been, during the teleportation, torn to shreds by the spatial forces. However, the woman's situation was clearly not much better. At this moment, she was in a corner of the stone house, staring coldly at Han Li. Her eyes were filled with a guarded look. If the human cultivator opposite her was an easy opponent in a life-or-death battle, but the person before her was one of the most difficult adversaries she had ever seen. To be able to, at the mid-nascent soul stage, possess divine abilities on par with a great cultivator, and with his 5 souls concentric devils, he was practically equivalent to 2 late-stage great cultivators. Given this, she didn't think she and Han Li truly had the power to fight. However, this Ice Phoenix felt no fear in her heart. Even if she was no match for Han Li, if she were to flee with all her might, she, who possessed spatial divine abilities, who could possibly stop her? But after a moment, she finally let out a cold snort. She indifferently took a step back. Han Li, for his part, had no interest in facing the Ice Phoenix and risking a life-or-death battle. As long as the other party didn't take the initiative to attack him, he couldn't be bothered to expend a large amount of magic power to fight her. After all, her innate divine ability was exceptionally wondrous. Seeing Han Li's action, the silver-robed woman's expression softened, and she secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Han Li had already used his divine sense. His divine sense penetrated the stone wall, only to be immediately repelled and destroyed by a powerful force. Instantly, a flash of cyan light appeared at his fingertip. A half-foot-long cold glint appeared in a flash, and stabbed into the bluestone. With a piercing sound that cut through the air, the cold glint only managed to penetrate a short distance. Before it was seemingly repelled back, Han Li, remaining expressionless, casually flicked his fingers. Instantly, 3 more streaks of cyan sword chi shot out, striking the other 3 bluestone walls. The result was the same. Han Li narrowed his eyes, staring at the stone wall in silence. Humph! Seeing this, the Yenshan woman let out a cold sneer. Instantly, a vast white rift flashed and disappeared. Then, she vanished in a flash. She had actually used a spatial divine ability to teleport directly out of the stone room. Seeing this, Han Li continued to silently watch the stone wall before him. After a moment, the humanoid puppet behind him suddenly silently raised a hand. A short black dagger shot out. The bluestone wall in front of him unexpectedly shattered, piece by piece. Han Li's vision suddenly opened up. He had appeared in a large hall. The place where he stood was empty. The Yenshan woman was not inside either. But after Han Li took a closer look, the corner of his mouth suddenly twitched. A look of disbelief flashed in his eyes, because on the opposite side of the hall, there was a door carved with strange runes. And yet, this particular stone door was terribly familiar to Han Li. It felt like a heavy blow to his heart. Taking a deep breath, Han Li's expression returned to normal. He then strode directly towards the stone door. A brilliant golden streak of sword chi slashed out. The surface of the stone door flashed with a white light, but was ultimately slashed open by the sword chi, splitting into 2 halves. Han Li's figure blurred, and he hurriedly scanned his surroundings. He then stood motionless at the entrance. On both sides of the passage were tall, identical structures, as if cast from the same mold. It really is this place. There's no mistake. After an unknown amount of time, this place was, unbelievably, the inner hall of the Void Heaven, the very same giant bluestone tower he had been to before. He had actually come from as far as the extreme northern lands of the Great Jin. He just didn't know which floor of the giant tower he was on. Xian Hall and Xuling Hall. It turns out the 2 of them are actually deeply connected. He muttered to himself. His expression finally calmed down. With his current supernatural powers, he would be fine even in the mind-disturbing sea, as long as he can get out of this hall, and then repair the teleportation array that sent him to the mind-disturbing sea that day. The very one he had destroyed. He could return directly to Tiannan.